The Eerie attic before Reddit.com user Digstores got down to recounting their scariest of ghost stories about living in a place that was obviously teeming with honest-to-goodness members of the spiritual world. They pointed out the irony of ghost stories that begin with the phrase, "I don't believe in ghosts," but after all, no matter how a ghost story begins, it always hinges on the notion that, come on, of course we believe in ghosts. A few years ago, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Melbourne, Australia, they went on to recall. It was my first time living on my own. The apartment block had been built in the 1930s. I'd been there for a few months when I came home from work one day and went into the bathroom. I saw something strange. A wooden board, which had covered a hole in the ceiling that led to a small attic space, lay fractured in two pieces on the ground. I examined the pieces. The board was an inch thick, and it would have taken Bruce Lee to break it. I thought the landlord had sent someone to work on the attic. I was frozen stiff with fear. Someone is up there for sure, I thought. I emailed pictures to the landlord, asking if anyone had been there, with an undertone of annoyance, since she hadn't warned me. Her reply read, "Please call me as soon as you are able to." I called, and she explained that her last two tenants had said the same thing happened. She promised to replace the board, and she did. A month later, I woke up one night around 4 a.m. My body was covered in goosebumps. It felt like someone was rubbing his or her hands on me. Everything was silent, but then I heard a dragging sound coming from above my bed. It was as if someone was pulling a sack of potatoes. I froze, convinced someone was up there. There is no way an animal could make that sound. After 5 minutes, I worked up the courage to turn on the light, armed myself with a cricket bat, and walked to the bathroom. That's when I saw that the new board covering the hole was broken in two. I felt sick. The dragging sound had stopped, but I heard something else, whispering. The sound was clear and coming from the attic. It sounded like children's voices, and I could hear one sentence repeated over and over. "It's your turn. It's your turn." I switched on every light in the apartment to make things feel normal. It was 5 a.m. and dark outside. I watched TV to try to unwind. Then a fuse blew. My pet budgie, Dexter, whom I kept in the kitchen, usually never made a sound at night, but he started squawking like he was being strangled. I'd never heard him make those sorts of noises. He was screaming. I grabbed my car keys, ran out, sat in my car and waited there until the sun came up. When I saw people walking their dogs, this comforted me enough to go back in. The front door was open, but I figured I might have forgotten to close it when I ran out. I went to the kitchen to check on Dexter, but he wasn't in his cage. I felt sick again. All my windows were closed, so I looked everywhere inside. When I walked to the bathroom, I heard splashing. Dexter was half drowned in the toilet. I took him out, washed him and dried him. I was so confused. At 8 a.m., I called the landlord and gave her a watered-down version of the night. "Oh wow, you heard the whispering too," she said. "I stayed in that apartment for another 18 months. I heard the whispering on a few occasions, and twice the board covering the hole in the ceiling moved. Although I live elsewhere now, the landlord recently called. She said that her new tenants had begged to speak with me about some of the stuff that's been going on there. Forget it, it's their problem now." The Lady of Raynham Hall. In the heart of Norfolk, England, stands the grand Raynham Hall, a place steeped in history and whispered secrets. It is here that the ghost of Lady Dorothy Walpole is said to roam, her ethereal presence a subject of fascination and fear for centuries. Lady Dorothy, once a vibrant beauty of the 18th century, was married to Charles Townshend, a man known for his fierce temper and jealously guarded heart. Rumours swirled that Dorothy had been unfaithful, whisperings that led Charles to confine her within the hall's stone walls, far from the eyes of society. It was in these lonely halls that Dorothy met her untimely demise in 1726, her death shrouded in mystery and speculation. For years, staff and visitors have reported sightings of a spectral figure drifting through the halls and the grand staircase. The most compelling evidence of her existence came in 1936, when photographers from Country Life magazine captured the infamous brown lady descending the stairs, her ethereal form caught in a moment of time, her face eternally shrouded in a brown mist. Those who have seen her speak of a sadness that lingers, a longing for freedom and love, that was cruelly denied. The Lady of Raynham Hall remains a poignant reminder of the past, her spirit wandering through the rooms and corridors, forever trapped within the walls that once were her prison. The Bell Witch of Tennessee. In the early 19th century, nestled in the fertile lands of northern Tennessee, the Bell family began their new life. John Bell, a farmer from North Carolina, along with his wife, Lucy, and their children, settled in the Red River community, which would later become part of Adams, Tennessee. They were unaware that their family's name would soon be etched into the annals of the supernatural, giving birth to the legend of the Bell Witch. The first signs were subtle, almost dismissible. It began in 1817 with knocking sounds on the doors and outer walls of their log cabin. John and his sons would rush outside, lanterns in hand, only to find the darkness undisturbed. But as the nights progressed, so did the disturbances. The family started hearing gnawing sounds on their bedposts, chains dragging through the house, and faint whispers that echoed through the rooms, whispers without discernible words. One night, the entity found its voice. It sang hymns, quoted scripture, carried intelligent conversations, and once it began to speak, it revealed a terrifying awareness of the world beyond the Bell farm. It predicted local and global events with unnerving accuracy and seemed to be omnipresent, witnessing conversations and actions miles away. The entity expressed particular disdain for John Bell, whom it vowed to kill. It interfered with his health, leading to episodes of facial seizures and difficulty swallowing. Meanwhile, Betsy, the youngest daughter, suffered the most violent torments. Invisible hands pulled her hair, slapped her, and left welts and handprints on her face and body. Despite the family's efforts to appease the spirit, the witch, as it became known, continued its harassment, stating that it was the spirit of a neighbor, Kate Batts, with whom John had a murky business transaction. The witch's fame spread beyond the local community, attracting visitors from far and wide, eager to witness the phenomena for themselves. Among them was General Andrew Jackson, who, intrigued by the stories, decided to confront the entity with his entourage. Legend has it that upon approaching the Bell property, their wagon became inexplicably immobilized. Jackson proclaimed, "By the eternal boys, it is the witch." After a night of turmoil and unexplained phenomena, Jackson and his men fled, with some reports suggesting that the future president declared he'd rather face the entire British army than spend another night with the Bell Witch. The witch had moments of benevolence, especially towards Lucy Bell, whom it called the most perfect woman to walk the earth. It provided fresh fruit to Lucy and sang hymns to her, a stark contrast to its malevolence towards John and Betsy. The climax of the haunting came in 1820. John Bell had been bedridden, his condition worsening under the witch's torments. One morning, after slipping into a coma, he died. It was discovered that a vial of unknown liquid was found near his bed. When a drop was administered to the cat, it died instantly. The witch's voice was heard, boasting that it had given John Bell a big dose of it the night before, claiming his death. With John Bell's death, the entity's activities decreased. Betsy broke off her engagement to her suitor, Joshua Gardner, a decision the witch had vehemently advocated for. The entity made a final proclamation that it would return in 7 years. It kept its promise, appearing to John Bell Jr., discussing matters of the past, present, and future, including predictions of the Civil War and other significant events. After 3 weeks, it departed, promising to return in 107 years, but if it did, no one admitted to witnessing its return. The lost souls of the Stanley Hotel. High in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, the Stanley Hotel stands as a grand testament to early 20th century craftsmanship and elegance. Yet, beneath its polished surface and stunning facade, the hotel harbors a depth of stories, not all of them belonging to the living. It was this convergence of beauty and mystery that inspired Stephen King's The Shining, but the true tales of the Stanley's spectral residence predate even his haunting narrative. Before your arrival, it was a crisp autumn evening when Mara, a writer seeking solitude and inspiration, checked into the Stanley Hotel. Drawn by its infamous history and breathtaking views, she hoped the change of scenery would break her writer's block. Her room, 217, was spacious and welcoming, with a view that overlooked the vast, undulating landscape of Estes Park. However, it wasn't the view that caught her attention, but the sudden drop in temperature as she crossed the threshold and the faint, unmistakable scent of roses. The first night. That night, Mara awoke to the sound of laughter, soft, distant, yet distinctly coming from within her room. The room was chilly, her breath visible in the moonlit air. She scanned the room, her gaze landing on the armchair by the fireplace. It rocked gently, as though someone had just stood up from it. Remembering the stories of Mrs. Wilson, the room's ghostly inhabitant, Mara whispered a tentative, "Hello?" The room fell silent, the sensation of being watched slowly fading. The musician. The next day, Mara explored the hotel, her steps echoing through the opulent halls adorned with antique furniture and timeless art. Her wanderings led her to the music room, where a grand piano took center stage. As she admired the instrument, a soft melody filled the room, the keys moving with invisible hands. The music was melancholic, a lament that spoke of longing and loss. The air around her smelled faintly of roses, a signature left by Flora Stanley, who continued to play for an audience beyond the veil. The ballroom gathering curiosity piqued. Mara attended a tour led by a guide who shared tales of the hotel's past and its ghostly residents. The ballroom, they were told, was a hotspot for paranormal activity. That night, Mara returned to the ballroom, its vast space bathed in moonlight. She felt an electric charge in the air, a whisper of movement, as though a crowd milled around her, the echoes of laughter and conversation from a time long past. A chill ran down her spine as she realized she was not alone. The Stanley Hotel was alive with the spirits of its past. To the fourth floor. The fourth floor, once the servants' quarters, was notorious for the sound of children running and giggling. Despite her apprehension, Mara ventured upstairs. The hallway was silent, the only sound her own footsteps. Suddenly, a ball rolled out from an unseen corner, stopping at her feet. Laughter echoed, a sound both innocent and eerie. Mara bent to pick up the ball, and as she straightened, she felt a cold hand touch hers, though she was alone. The final night. On her last night, Mara was awakened by a draft. The windows were shut, yet the curtains billowed as if caught in a breeze. She then heard a voice, soft but clear, "Write our stories." The voice was compassionate, imbued with a sadness that spoke of untold tales and unfulfilled desires. Mara realized then that the spirits of the Stanley Hotel didn't haunt its halls out of malice, but from a desire to be remembered, to have their stories told. Departure. Mara left the Stanley Hotel with more than just a respite from her writer's block. She carried with her the tales of those who had passed through its doors, their whispers in the wind, their laughter in the shadows. The hotel, with its majestic beauty and eerie inhabitants, had bestowed upon her a wealth of stories, each begging to be told. A tale of the Tower of London. The Tower of London, an imposing fortress with a storied past of royal triumphs and tragedies, has stood on the north bank of the River Thames for nearly a millennium. Its stone walls and bloody history have given rise to countless tales of hauntings and spectral sightings, making it one of the most haunted sites in England. As twilight falls and the bustling sounds of London fade into a whisper, the tower's ancient stones seem to stir with life. It's within these walls that our tale unfolds, a narrative woven from the threads of history and the whispers of those who've never left. The Weeping Queen. Anne Boleyn, once queen, now a restless spirit, is often seen in the Tower Green, where she met her tragic end. Witnesses have reported a ghostly figure, head tucked under her arm, moving silently across the ground. On a particular moonlit night, a group of tourists, led by a beefeater guide, felt a sudden chill in the air as they approached the Queen's house. The guide, a stoic man not given to flights of fancy, paused mid-sentence, his gaze fixed on the shadowy figure of a woman by the scaffold site. She looked at them, a mournful expression on her face that spoke of betrayal and lost love, before vanishing into the mist. The princes in the tower, The innocent laughter of children playing echoes through the Wakefield Tower, a sound that seems out of place in the cold, somber structure. Edward Fee and his brother Richard, the young princes, tragically disappeared in the summer of 1483, their fate a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. Legend has it that their spirits still roam the tower, forever children, playing in the shadows, their laughter a haunting reminder of their unsolved murder. A night watchman, making his rounds, once heard the sound of a ball bouncing down the stairs, only to turn the corner and find the corridor empty. The White Lady of the Tower. The White Tower, the oldest part of the fortress, is home to the White Lady. She's been seen waving from a window, her presence marked by a sudden drop in temperature and the faint scent of roses. A visiting scholar, researching late into the night in the royal armories, felt a gentle touch on his shoulder. Assuming it was a colleague, he turned, only to find the room empty. The scent of roses lingered, and a soft, melancholic sigh echoed through the hall. The shadow of the Traitor's Gate. Traitor's Gate, where prisoners once entered the tower, never to return, is a place of dark energies. Anne Askew, a young noblewoman and Protestant reformer, was brought through these gates, later to be tortured and executed for heresy. On stormy nights, when the Thames churns and lightning illuminates the sky, a phantom boat approaches the gate. Within it stands a woman, her gaze defiant, her spirit unbroken by the tower's horrors. A security guard patrolling the battlements watched in disbelief as the apparition passed beneath him, the figure of Anne Askew, looking up at him, a silent plea in her eyes. The Last Good Night. Our tale concludes with the ghost of Sir Walter Raleigh, imprisoned in the Bloody Tower for 13 years. He spent his days writing, walking in the garden he tended with such care. It's said that on certain evenings, the scent of his herbal plants fills the air, and the soft scratch of a quill pen can be heard from his study. A couple, lost in the maze of the tower's passages, stumbled upon the garden. The man, a botanist, recognized the plants as those from Raleigh's time. As they turned to leave, they heard a voice, clear and strong, reciting a poem. Even such is time, which takes in trust our youth, our joys, and all we have. The voice faded, leaving an echo of wisdom and resignation. Shadows of the Winchester. In the heart of Silicon Valley, amidst the rush of modern innovation, lies a monument to sorrow and the supernatural, the Winchester Mystery House. Its story begins with Sarah Winchester, the bereaved widow of William Wirt Winchester, heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company fortune. Plagued by the deaths of her daughter and husband, and guided by the belief that she was cursed by the spirits of those felled by Winchester rifles, Sarah embarked on a never-ending construction project that would come to define her legacy and bewilder the world. The Curse Revealed. Following her husband's death in 1881, Sarah sought the counsel of a medium who claimed that the Winchester family was haunted by the ghosts of those killed by the Winchester rifle. The only way to appease these spirits, she was told, was to move west and continuously build a home for them. If she stopped, the medium warned, Sarah would join her late family. With a vast inheritance at her disposal, Sarah moved to San Jose, California, and began the construction of what would become the Winchester Mystery House, a house like no other. The mansion was a sprawling labyrinth of oddities, stairs leading nowhere, doors opening to brick walls, and windows overlooking other rooms. Sarah believed these architectural anomalies would confuse the vengeful spirits, allowing her some peace. Workers toiled around the clock, their hammers and saws a constant backdrop to Sarah's solitude. The First Encounter. It was on a fog-laden night in 1906, following the great earthquake, that Sarah first encountered the spirits she so feared. As she navigated the damaged corridors, a chill air enveloped her, and the faint sound of a child's laughter echoed through the halls. Turning a corner, she came face to face with a spectral figure, a young man in period clothing, who vanished as quickly as he appeared. This encounter marked the beginning of Sarah's nightly seances, where she sought to communicate with the spirits and learn their wishes. The Room of Sorrows. Deep within the mansion, Sarah constructed the Room of Sorrows, a hidden chamber where she kept the names of those reported to have been killed by Winchester rifles. It was here, surrounded by the whispered names of the dead, that Sarah spent her most reflective moments, pondering the cost of her family's fortune. Visitors to the mansion today speak of an overwhelming sadness in the room, a palpable weight of grief that lingers. The carpenter's tailor, Thomas, one of the original carpenters, was rumored to have never left the mansion. His spirit, still donning period work clothes, is often seen repairing the fireplace in the grand ballroom, or walking the hallways with his toolbox. Guests have reported hearing the sound of his hammer late into the night, a testament to the endless construction ordered by Sarah. The Seance Room, the heart of the mansion. The Seance Room was where Sarah communicated with the spirits each night. It is said that on certain anniversaries, the air in the room grows cold, and the faint sound of Sarah's voice can be heard, pleading with the spirits for forgiveness and guidance. Those who have entered the room describe feeling a sudden sense of despair, as if the walls themselves were imbued with Sarah's sorrow. The Night of Shadows. One particular night, a group of paranormal investigators sought to uncover the mysteries of the Winchester mansion. As they set up their equipment in the seance room, shadows began to flit across the walls, and the temperature dropped sharply. A voice, barely a whisper, spoke a single word: peace. The equipment flickered and died, leaving the investigators in darkness. When the lights returned, a message was found etched in the dust on the table: Build. Legacy. Sarah Winchester passed away in her sleep on September 5, 1922, leaving behind a mansion that was as much a monument to her guilt and fear as it was to her eccentricity and innovation. The Winchester Mystery House remains a place of fascination, a physical manifestation of the human desire to find solace, to make amends, and to seek understanding beyond the veil of death. Today, the mansion is open to those who dare to walk its halls, to listen for the whispers of the past, and to perhaps catch a glimpse of Sarah, or one of the many spirits said to inhabit the house. The story of the Winchester Mystery House is not just one of ghosts and architectural anomalies. It is a tale of a woman's struggle with her conscience, her attempt to reconcile her family's legacy with the spirits she believed it had wronged. As the sun sets over San Jose, casting long shadows across the mansion's many gables and turrets, the line between the living and the dead blurs. The Winchester Mystery House stands as a reminder that some stories, like some spirits, are never truly at rest.